Hey guys, we are live, YouTube live on the Suits channel. Great to have Robbie Wheaton with us today.
Good
from
to be here.
Wheaton Arms, and gunsmith for over 20 years, and makes custom, does a lot of custom work, especially on Glocks, but
Yes.
others. And also has WheatonArms.com that they do a lot of Glock aftermarket parts, accessories, the best trigger out on the market, aftermarket.
Yes, sir.
Period. And we really appreciate Robbie for being here. Also, GoMed Gear, doing a lot of stuff with medical stuff, and
big announcement coming up with that pretty soon.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll wait.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it for a minute.
Yeah. So we've got a big flash sale coming up on, I think it's the 15th. Hang on. I'm a terrible human being. Let me check my date here and make sure that I'm right on that.
All the gear that he does, it's North American Rescue, so it's really excellent quality and good stuff.
The 18th.
The 18th.
Flash sale on the 18th of June.
And guys, if you don't have medical, especially when you're going to the range, you have it in your vehicle, it's great to have it.
Yeah. Outdoors, boating, we've got a new kit that we're doing. It's called our mom kit. It's really designed for moms and all of their everyday activities, moms with kids, moms without kids, moms with dogs. Moms always need medical supplies.
Right.
There's always a major or minor boo-boo that mama's got to take care of, because a lot of times daddy's not around. He's working or whatever.
Right.
So we've built a kit specifically for moms that will be able to handle the majority of any kind of medical issues that mom has to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Right. That's great. Well, check out GoMed Gear. And also, we appreciate Sarah Mack. She's over in the comments. We will be taking some questions in a few minutes. And you can go ahead and put those questions down, because she'll pick out some that are specific. We are going to talk, and let me say this last thing. We really appreciate Sportsman's Guide for sponsoring today's episode. And they give you $20 off every $100 purchase or more. And you use Sooch. No 00, just Sooch, not Scooch. SOOTCH. And we can't put a link down below, but you can go to the Sportsman's Guide website and get it.
And make sure you sign up for their Buyers Club as well. Their Buyers Club, you get free shipping on almost everything they have. Huge, big, bulky items. Anything that they've got, you get free shipping on it, and it will pay for itself in no time.
It pays for itself in a hurry.
Yep. So
now we're going to get down to business today. We are going to be talking about, and I titled this Situational Awareness, but it encompasses more than that.
Yeah. And
we have 10 tips. This actually came from a retired law enforcement officer. And a buddy of mine sent this to me, actually. And when I read it, I was like, okay, I need to share this with my friends and family. And then I thought, well, who better to share it with than on YouTube?
Than our friends and family.
Yeah, our friends and family on YouTube. And so we have 10 different things that you need to consider. Some of these are pretty basic, but sometimes you just don't think about it.
Yep.
Some of these actually are a little eye-opening. So it really helped me as well. And Robbie felt the same way.
Yep.
And so there are 10 things. Of course, you need to be aware of your situations, where you are. And, a lot of times, and you see it all the time, cell phones. That's probably the biggest distraction. And it's probably one of the biggest advantages that criminals have. I have a friend of mine that worked for a major department store years ago, and would go into the security room at a mall. It was a big mall. It was a big department store. And she told me that the things that go on in the parking lot of malls is appalling. I mean, it is shocking. A lot of things that are never reported, or they are reported, but you just don't hear about it. So, guys, this is something. And then, of course, with a lot of the rise in crime that we've seen, especially in our urban areas, these are going to be some good tips to think about and to have in your toolbox. Because the thing is thinking about it is important.
It's just awareness.
It is
awareness of what's going on, awareness of who's around you, what's around you. And, like I said, there's some great tips on here. Even a couple of things on here that really made me think. I was like, wow, I've never considered that.
And you want to share them with your wife.
Absolutely.
I mean, I immediately did.
Absolutely.
So first thing we're going to talk about is getting into your car. Now, and this really applies to women, but it also applies to men.
Absolutely.
And especially with human trafficking and things like that, I mean, there are some things to consider. So getting into your car. One of the big things is a lot of, especially women, but sometimes men, and I've been guilty of this.
Absolutely.
Get in my car. You need to leave immediately. One of the things that we do, we've been in the store, we've got receipts, we've got bags, we're putting stuff up. get it in there and get out of the parking lot, because if you're sitting there, you become a target.
That's
and
right.
a lot of times people are watching for that. And so get in your car, drive off immediately. Of course, number one is to lock those doors.
Mm-hmm. Well, summertime, you go outside, you got some bags, grocery store, whatever. You put your stuff in your car, you close it up, you get in the car, you turn the car on, you sit there for a minute, you got the air on high, you're waiting on the car to cool off. While you're waiting on the car to cool off, you got your phone up, you're checking your email, text messages, whatever.
Right.
Totally unaware of what's going on around you.
Right.
And, here's this guy over here watching you, loading your car. And he's like, there's a perfect target. They're not paying any attention. They're not looking. They walk over there, tap on the window with a gun. Boom. Next thing you know, you've either been kidnapped or your car's been stolen.
Right. And just attacked.
That's
or
right.
robbed.
That's
and there's
right.
a lot of things. So,
or all of the above.
Yeah, all of the above. So, of course, first thing is, guys, you get to your car, just get in it, put it in drive, and get the heck out of there.
That's
just
right.
drive off. And then, of course, you can, if you need to, you can pull over somewhere where you have a lot of room, where you're open if you need to check something. But that is a vital thing. I know my wife is probably the worst. In fact, she'll go out even in our driveway, and she'll sit there for 5 minutes. Sometimes I'm see her go, and I come in, and then a few minutes later, our driveway alarm goes off, and I'm like, oh, she's just now leaving. So, being careful to get in there and get moving.
I'll give you a perfect story about that. A couple of weeks ago, my wife, she pulls up in the driveway, raises the garage door, and it's probably been a couple of minutes. So I'm thinking she's got some groceries and stuff in the car. So I walk outside, walk out to the car, and she's sitting there on her phone, texting, right? I walk up to the window and stood there. I pulled my phone out and looked at my phone because I wanted to see what time it was. And I stood there for like 4 minutes. She never looks up. She never acknowledges me, never realizes that I'm there. So finally, I tap on the glass and she jumps.
Oh, right.
And I was like, hey, pay attention to what's going on around you, even in your own driveway.
Right.
So I think it kind of shocked her a little bit that she was so unaware. And she was like, how long have you been standing here? And I'm like, 4 minutes.
Wow.
4 minutes that I was standing here by your window.
Now, let me preface this because Robbie has had a couple of instances. Now, he lives in a really nice neighborhood, and it's in the back, lives in a cul-de-sac with a lot of houses right around him. Had his trailer. They tried to steal your trailer one time. He got into an actual physical confrontation with the dude. And then somebody was breaking into their car one night at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Took almost an hour for law enforcement to get there once he called 911. So
47 minutes.
You may think that you live in a fairly safe neighborhood. And honestly, you go into his neighborhood and you're like, man, this is a nice neighborhood.
Well, you think about this. If you're a criminal, are you going to go rob the trailer park or are you going to go rob the nice neighborhood?
Exactly.
I'm going someplace where there's nicer things.
Right.
One, they don't know me because I'm not from there. And two, I'm going to go someplace where they're probably they feel safe and they're going to leave their cars unlocked. And it's going to be an easy target of opportunity.
Right.
And those are the kind of places that criminals look for.
Right.
It's getting to be summertime. And we always see an increase in robberies and thefts during the summertime. We also see an increase in violent crime during the summertime because of drug use, the weather, whatever. More people are out.
Right.
So at the summertime, I think you have to be even more aware of everything that's going on around you than you do other times of the year, like fall and winter, stuff like that. Summertime and major holidays, you really, really, really need to be aware of your situation, what's going on around you, and everything that's happening in a full 360-degree circle all the time.
Right. That's right. So now the next one, which honestly, this is something where it escalates. So let's say that someone comes up to your car, they pull a gun, they pull a knife, they get in your car. They're in your car and they're holding a gun on you. What do you do? Well, now let me tell you guys, we've seen it in the paper over and over where people are found. They're just missing.
Yeah.
There may be even a cell phone laying on the ground or whatever. But one of the things that he recommends is when you get in there, do not leave the parking lot. Get that car, put it in drive, and just crash it. Just crash the car. Mm-hmm. And you draw a lot of attention,
and
it gets things going. And so then the guy's going to just bug out. I mean, he's going to hit the road. And so that's one of the things. Do not leave, because if you leave, you're really in danger. They're going to find you somewhere. Guys, I'd rather be found in the parking lot right there.
That's right.
Than to be found somewhere else where they're doing something, who knows what.
6 months later, and they just find a pile of bones.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, go ahead and just put it in drive and hit the gas. A kind of funny story. I have a buddy of mine. when I lived in North Carolina, and he was actually the fire chief. And there was this guy walking down the road, and so he pulled over to give him a ride. You know, he was just being nice. And so he's sitting there, and he lets the guy in. The guy gets in. He goes, "I really like your car." And he goes, "Well, thank you." And the guy said, "I think I'll take it." And he pulls out this really large knife, and he just points it at him. And he said, "Get out of the car." Well, he said that morning, typically he takes his, and this was actually before concealed carry, but you could carry a gun in the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of having it in his dash where he usually had it, he just had it down beside his leg. And he picked it up, and he just pointed the gun at the dude, and he said, "Get out of the car." And the guy goes, "Whoa!" And he dropped the knife, and he's like, "Hey man, hey man!" And he said, "Get out now." He goes, "I'm not stopping." And the guy jumped out of the car with it still rolling, still moving. But you know, you never know. Yeah, they're just some crazy things, and a lot of times they will take advantage of your good nature. So you've got to really be careful.
That's right.
Now, number 3 is when you're in a parking lot or a parking garage. You know, watch, be aware, number 1, like we've talked about, but in a parking garage especially.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me, though, a lot of times when people are in parking garages, they're a little more aware because they're a little bit spookier, seems like. But, you know, we have a parking garage at our mall, and there are things that happen all the time in that parking garage. And a lot of times you're not really thinking about it. So be aware of your surroundings. When you get up to your car, examine the interior, look in the back seat, look in the front seat. You know, you say, "Well, I like my car." Well, they may have popped the window, you know, or you may have just forgotten, or one of your doors, maybe it didn't lock. And so go ahead and examine. It's just something really to be smart about. So examine your inside of your car. Now, if you pull up, you're walking up to your car, and there's a van right beside your car
that says free ammunition.
Yeah. It's a white van with blacked out windows. Yeah, free ammunition. You know, guys, get in the passenger side. Because a lot of times they'll have a van and they'll open the door and they'll just pull you in and they go. So make sure that if there's a van beside you, just get in the passenger side. It's much better to look really dumb than to, you know, to get yourself taken, especially women, especially children.
That's right.
Women, if you have children with you, you know, you got to consider these things because you never know what can happen. And I'll tell you, if you've never watched Active Self-Protection, which is YouTube channel, John Correa, incredible. Does a lot of surveillance video showing actual events happening, and it'll really make you think. One of the big things is gasoline. When you're getting gasoline, that is a transitional space. There are people pulling in and out. It's real easy for a car to pull in and to do something. So, you know, again, being fully aware of what's going on. Now, one thing too that I thought was interesting that I've never really thought about, and I've seen this 1,000 times, is you go to your car, there's a car next to you, and there's somebody sitting in the passenger seat. You don't really think about it. They're just sitting there. Most of the time, they just didn't want to go in the store. But criminals will use that opportunity to step out and to get you, especially if you're fiddling around with your keys. Have your keys ready to go. Go ahead and hit your lock, open it up, and then get in your vehicle. Again, lock it and leave, because you never know. Now, if somebody is shady and they're kind of hanging out there and you're a little nervous and you're in a parking garage, you know, you can go get security or law enforcement to kind of help you to get to your car, at least escort you to your vehicle.
And here's the big thing: trust your gut. You know, if your gut's telling you that something doesn't feel right, listen to it. Absolutely listen to it. If you're walking up to your car and you're like, something's just not right, go back in the store, get security, call the police, and just be like, "Hey, maybe I'm just paranoid, whatever, but I walked out to my car and there was a shady guy sitting in the passenger seat of a car right beside mine. Something just doesn't feel right." Call the police. That's what they're there for. They're there for, if you need them, they're there for you. Call them, like, "Hey, it just doesn't feel right." Have them come out, check it out. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something. But listen, I would much rather see you guys call the police come out, and it's nothing 100% of the time, than you not call the police and it's a huge event one time.
Now, many of you guys, like myself, I conceal carry, so I'm walking out to the parking lot. This is not necessarily geared toward people that, may be self-defense minded already. It's something really to share with those that you care about. But it's still a possibility. And when you're getting in your vehicle, and you do have your concealed carry, don't let that be an overconfidence either. Because you don't want to have to use it if you don't have to. You don't want to put yourself in a bad situation.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you a little story. Sarah Mack one time when she was working at a local restaurant, and it was at Chick-fil-A, and the area was a little bit rough anyway. And she would go in really early in the morning. She had to be there at like 5:30. Well, this particular morning, she had spent the night with a friend of hers, and she was coming into work, and she was out in the parking lot. Now, obviously, she couldn't take any kind of weapon into the Chick-fil-A, but she was out there, and she was in her car, and a homeless guy walked up right to her window, and she was probably 100 yards from where she had to walk, and it was dark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just so happens my wife was bringing our son Seth to work that morning, because usually he rode with Sarah Mack. So what happened was she pulls up and sees this guy standing there right next to her car. And so she pulls up and goes, "What do you want? You need something?" And the guy said, "I just need a little money." And, and he finally ended up kind of walking off. But you never know when you can get in that situation. Honestly, for Sarah Mack, she had a concealed carry. She had her gun. She had it in her hand down below where the guy couldn't see it. And she said if he tried to get in, I'd have used it. But really, what would have also been a good option is for her just to drive up to the front and get out and say, "Look, this happened. I'm up here at the front. I'm not getting out of my car to drive here." So, and sometimes you can alert, the
law enforcement about a person there that are, pandering or, harassing customers and stuff.
Especially that early in the morning.
Right.
It's a little bit strange.
That's right.
So that is one big thing. Now, again, the car next to you, when somebody's there, just, be careful. And again, if you're concealed carrying, just be aware. Think about it. Also, especially ladies, but this could go with anybody. If there is an option to take an elevator in a parking garage, especially, or even in a building, take the elevator. Taking stairwells are a dangerous place. There's a lot of things that happen in stairwells.
That's right.
And so, just being careful in stairwells. Okay.
It's almost a fatal funnel. You're one way up, one way down, and there's generally only exits at certain levels.
And there's even platforms.
There's platforms. That's exactly right. So it can be difficult for if you get in a stairwell and start up, someone starts in a stairwell from below, someone comes down from a stairwell. You're kind of stuck there in the middle.
Right.
And, you're in a bad situation at that point.
Right.
So the elevator is always a great option to provide you with some separation from that. They're faster, they're quicker. It may take a minute for the elevator to get to your floor, to take you up or down, but it's much safer to take that elevator.
And there are things that happen in elevators, so you need to be careful there as well.
Yep.
Okay, now number 4 is, let's say that someone has a gun drawn on you. Let's say you're in a parking lot, you're in a garage, especially garage, and someone pulls a knife or they pull a gun on you. The best thing to do is to just hit the road. I mean, just run. And zigzag. Now, actually, 4 of about 100 shots fired will hit you. So you got about a 4% chance of being hit, because it's very difficult to hit a moving target. So just run and try to get out of the vicinity. Try to get back to the entrance. Try to get back to help where somebody's there. And definitely just, make all the noises you can. If you are a concealed carry holder and someone approaches you that way, and because with a gun drawn, you don't want to draw on somebody that has a gun drawn.
Huge disadvantage. I don't care what your skill level is.
Right. So, you need to make sure that you get out of the area and at least get behind cover if you need to use your firearm in a response to self-defense. Okay, let's see. We got one more, and then that'll be 5. If you've got any questions, go ahead and pop them up, and we'll try to help out. All right. Let's go back to if you're being mugged, because I think this goes back with the guns drawn. Guys, if you're somewhere and you're being mugged, one of the best things to do is when you pull your wallet out, is to toss it. Don't hold on to it. Don't let them do something. Just take it and toss it. Chances are they're going to look to get to that billfold first, or get to that pocketbook first, and they won't pay attention to you. You can run. You can always replace your cards, and you can do those things. But that's a great way to be able to get and defuse the situation.
That's right. Well, and here's the thing: is it a hassle to have to replace all of that stuff? Yes, it absolutely is. Is your life worth a couple of $100 that you've got in your pocketbook or your wallet? No, it absolutely isn't. Give them what they want, especially if they have a gun or a knife and they've already got it out. You're in a very disadvantageous position. Give them what they want, live to fight another day.
Yeah, and they're not there to hurt you as much. And even if they were, their first priority is to rob you. typically.
That's right.
If they're going to do it, they're going to do it anyway. But the best thing to me is just take your billfold and toss it, especially if you're out of, in another country or you're on vacation or you're somewhere where, you really can't necessarily be able to defend yourself. I mean, Robbie just got back from Costa Rica. He was there for a few days and, he couldn't carry his gun down.
That's right. Yeah.
So, just being aware, thinking about a few things, being quick to think, because if you're not careful, you're paralyzed.
That's right. And, the thing is you go to places like that where you carry what you can carry to defend yourself, if you're in a situation.
That's right.
And being, at a heightened awareness level everywhere you go. I profile people. As soon as I see somebody, we're going to restaurants, whatever, I'm profiling everyone in the restaurant. I'm looking at egress and ingress routes into the restaurant, out of the restaurant, where I can go if there's any kind of situation. And, that's just being situationally aware.
Right.
And knowing what you're going to do and having a plan. If something does go bad, having a plan always puts you in a better position than having no plan.
That's right.
So that's one of the big things that I always try and do, no matter where I go or what I'm doing, is have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. If this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm probably SOL. But, it's always good to have multiple plans in any situation. And that way, if something does happen, you've already developed a plan for what you're going to do.
Well, mindset is one of the most important things.
Absolutely.
And, it's not being paranoid.
No.
It's just being aware of what's going on around you, because things do happen.
That's right.
There was a song, I think it was Nirvana, that said, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not watching you. So, but it's great to be aware. One of the big things, though, and
was that Nirvana or was that John Krasinski?
I think it was Nirvana. Could have been John.
The bomber.
Oh, yeah. Now, one of the things about self-defense is your elbow is your strongest point of your body, the elbow. So especially if a guy is larger and bigger, using your elbow effectively, and especially in the groin area, that really helps. But, being able to use that elbow, and, typically women are built more toward the hips. They're built with stronger lower body strength, and they can a lot of times maneuver that way. And going to some self-defense classes, learning a little bit definitely makes a big plus.
Learning how to strike.
Yeah, learning how to strike.
Those are tremendous unarmed assets to be able to know how to strike properly. Because here's the thing. If you don't know how to strike properly, you can injure yourself. You can break a hand, you can break a wrist, you can break a foot. I mean, it's pretty easy to injure yourself pretty severely if you don't know how to strike. If you haven't trained to strike, if you haven't built up cartilage and stuff and built up your wrist, built up your hands to where they're used to striking, you can injure yourself. So it's a big thing, and my boys, all of my boys know how to strike. My wife knows how to strike, and that's something that we work on pretty regularly, because it's a very valuable tool to know how to do that. And to know how to do it correctly, so you don't injure yourself if you have to throw strikes.
Yeah, you have family night.
That's
you all get together and you strike each other. There's Daddy. Wow! Oh, that was good. Oh. Okay, I think we have some questions, so we'll let Sarah Mack give us pop them out here.
All right. Dr. Kaufman asks, is West Virginia a good state for owning firearms?
Yeah, they have pretty good gun laws in West Virginia. I'm not real familiar with everything they do, but typically they're a pretty conservative state. Even Joe Manchin, who is their senator, who's a Democrat, is really strong on the Second Amendment to a lot of points. So, but one of the things I've done, and there's a lot of people moving right now. I mean, a lot of people are relocating.
Yes.
Go to the gun laws. You can go to their state, and they'll usually have some kind of gun law. You can also go to USCCA. They have a lot of reciprocity information on there and things about the gun laws. USCCA is one of the biggest. In fact, I'm a member of the USCCA. I've been a member, and if you're going to conceal carry, it's really important.
Yeah.
And I have a link, in fact, down below in the description. You can go straight to USCCA. We do have an affiliate deal with them. They're really great, but they're great to deal with. But I would go and look at some resources on those states. One thing I did was I read through the South Carolina gun law, read through every bit of it. and just to make sure that I'm in compliance, that I'm doing the right thing. Because one thing you don't want to do is get pulled over and be in violation, and possibly lose your gun rights.
That's right. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, no matter what state you're in.
Right. I mean, you can lose your law, you can break the law in another state and then lose your right in your
own state. That's right.
David Glazner asks, have you seen the video of a lady pumping gas and a van pulls up and several thugs get out to rob her? The lady doused all of them with gas. It was quick thinking.
That was quick thinking. I did see that. That was pretty interesting. It was funny because the guy was, and I thought it was a guy, but it might have been a girl, but getting the gas, and then one guy comes up beside him and he just goes, whoo! And then another guy runs up and he goes, shh, and then he sprays gas in the van. I mean, he is like spraying gas everywhere. I think the only thing he needed was a lighter.
Modern day
Zippo man. Of course, he might have blown himself up too. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. But that is one thing where you're quick thinking.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of this. A lot of this is just quick thinking.
Alfonso asks, what do y'all think about South Carolina's open carry bill that passed?
Here's the thing I think about it. It disappointed a lot of people because they really wanted constitutional carry. They wanted people to be able to carry, and I definitely was for that. But one thing that personally helps us as concealed carry holders is that sometimes I found myself, maybe I'm lifted up, I'm showing my gun, even as a concealed carry holder, and that, it'll show. And so
for me, that's always been my biggest concern as a concealed carry holder is I go in a store, I have to get something off a high shelf, and I reach up, my shirt raises up, now I've exposed my firearm. Well, somebody calls the police and they're like, oh, he exposed a firearm. I can be charged criminally for that.
Yeah, you can be charged with open carry.
That's
and
right.
In South Carolina, there was no
recourse for it.
No.
You would lose your license and your ability to be able to carry. So I think that the concession that they made allowing concealed carry holders to carry either concealed or open carry, I see some benefits to it. Do I think they could have gone a lot further, and do I think they were very soft with the law that they passed? Yes, I do. Yeah. I think the law, like you said, I think it should have been more geared toward our Second Amendment. I mean, we're South Carolina, all right? We should be the constitutionally conservative state that's leading the rest of the nation. And a lot of times some of our representatives in Congress and the Senate, in our state Congress and state Senate, are very soft when it comes to passing constitutional gun laws in this state.
Yeah, and we're really pushing for it. And to me, it's at least it's a step ahead. It's not a step back.
It is a step in the right direction.
And two, they waived the concealed carry fees.
Yes.
So now, if you want to go get your concealed carry, you can do it without paying a $50 fee. So that makes it nice. You still have to pay for training.
The training fee, but not the licensing fee. Right.
David Hain asks, what are good basic training habits we can do to better be prepared? Things to do at home and at the range.
Dry fire practice, especially if you're talking about firearms, dry fire practice is one of the best, and drawing from concealment.
That's right.
Just repeating to where you get used to it. That's one of the things I do a lot.
I use a shot timer. Anytime that I'm doing draws, whether they're from open carry or from concealment, I use a shot timer, and I'll set what's called a par time, which gives me a start beep and a stop beep. And then that way I know how long it's taking me to get my firearm out and get that first shot off. So if you're just doing dry fire, the par time thing is very, very good because it forces you to react and move faster.
Right.
And it'll help you build your speed skills a lot quicker, because it's forcing you to do things at a higher level than what you're used to doing them. Most people concealed carry draw in about 3 or 3.5 seconds. If you can cut a second off of that, that's a second faster that you can save your life.
And you need to, because you need to make sure you have trigger discipline.
That's
There's
right.
a lot of things about it. Getting the gun up and your sight picture, getting your natural point of aim, doing that same thing. Repetition is really important.
Yep.
So that's definitely something. Now, one thing that I would recommend, and we talked about this a minute ago, about not having, let's say you can't carry a firearm. I highly recommend carrying a decent flashlight that you can use as an impact tool. So this is something that to me is one of the biggest, and you can carry a flashlight about anywhere.
That's right.
And so that to me is one thing. If you live in a state that you can't carry, get you a good size flashlight that'll kind of hang out the end of your hand so you can use it and use that as a tool. And
great
of course,
striking tool.
It is.
Absolutely.
And there are tactical pins and things like that. But the flashlight to me really draws very little attention.
That's right. And practice your situational awareness. You go out to eat, you go into a restaurant, look at your places of ingress and egress. Figure out where you're coming in, where you're going out, where people can come in, where people can go out. Profile people when you go into a restaurant. I'm a firm believer that, if you can identify any area of potential threats right off of the bat, you're going to know where you want to sit in the restaurant to be able to quickly egress if there's an issue. You're going to know where potential threats could come from within the restaurant. So, I'm a big fan of profiling when you go into different places. And then that way you have an idea of what's going on. You have a plan of what you're going to do if something does happen.
Yes.
Noah asked 9 or 40 for the home.
Well, it's 9 is the number one self-defense round, and a lot of the loads they have. 40 is a great round. Yep. And if you like 40, regardless of the whole mantra of 40 sucks and all that.
Here's the thing. I've got a 40 in my nightstand right now. I've got a Glock 22 in my nightstand right now. My wife has a 9mm in her nightstand. She doesn't care for the 40 because it's snappier.
Right.
It takes her longer to recover from the recoil impulse to put a fast, accurate second or third shot down range with the 40 than it does with the 9mm. She can shoot the 9mm faster and more accurately than she can the 40. So for her, she carries the 9mm. For me in my nightstand, I've got a 40 caliber because I'm a big guy, and I've got I'm trained to handle recoil control. So I don't see a significant difference between 9 and 40 as far as second, third, fourth follow-up shots. So I've got the 40 with a heavier bullet, and I usually keep 200 grain bullets in my 40 caliber because it's a little more mass, it's a little more energy. I'm not too concerned about expansion and all of this with the projectiles. I'm looking at impact energy, just like with the 45 ACP. It's a great man stopper because it is a big, heavy, slow-moving projectile. But it's been proven for over 100 years as a tremendous man stopper.
It is, yeah, it is.
So I try and go with the heaviest projectile that I can get for my handguns, just because you're transferring more kinetic energy. And there's a couple of different schools of thought on that. Some guys really prefer, I was talking to a friend of mine, BJ Baldwin, a few weeks ago about this, and BJ really prefers a lightweight projectile going really, really fast, with the intent of trying to create some hydrostatic shock and a temporary wound channel with a handgun, where I'm of a little different school of thought, and I prefer a big, heavy, slow-moving projectile that you get a lot more kinetic energy transfer when the projectile hits. I think both schools of thought are very valid, and it really just comes down to what you, the end user, is more comfortable with.
Yeah, that's really it. It's really, and two, getting your shots on target.
Yep.
And that's in shot placement. Those are the biggest things. The calibers with the new self-defense rounds that they have, they're very effective, so you can do pretty much whatever.
OC Show 33 says, question, what is a good way to train yourself on how to react when emotions or fear are elevated, like in one of these situations?
One of the best things, and I heard this from Jocko Willink, who has a podcast. He was a Navy SEAL. He's done all kind of stuff. Brilliant man. Mm-hmm. One of the things that he said was to put yourself in situations, now not endangered situations, but one of the big things to me that really helped me early on was getting involved in competitive shooting.
Absolutely.
IDPA, absolutely. Those things. So you get yourself in a mindset of, you're under pressure, you've got people there watching, you're under timer,
little bit of adrenaline.
Yeah,
absolutely. Competitive shooting is one of the best, fastest ways to identify deficiencies in your training. Yeah.
And two, just being in normal things. Maybe it's going out and going boating and getting something with a little bit more edge to it. Yep. Those kind of things will develop a little bit more, because what we do is we get so stuck in our sedimentary life. And then when something happens, it's like a big shock. Yep. So, adding some elements of things that challenge you physically, challenge you mentally, really is a big help.
Well, the nice thing with competitive shooting is how do you shoot under stress? How do you shoot with a little bit of adrenaline? How do you react if you have a jam?
Right.
How do you react if your firearm runs out of ammunition? What do you do? How do you reload it? Where are you carrying your magazines? Are you able to get to your magazines? Do you fumble it and just throw it up in the air? And now you've got one magazine in the air, an empty magazine in your gun, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? So any kind of competition, USPSA, IDPA, anything like that, that is going to increase your weapon handling skills is going to give you a huge advantage in any type of defensive situation.
Or taking self-defense classes. You know, there's some knowledge to it, but on the other side of it, there is a lot going on with your mental ability and your mindset. And so I think that those things play.
And, you know, there's a lot of people that say, oh, well, competitive shooting's not real world. It's not, you know, it's not this, it's not that. Listen, competitive shooting is what it is. You're not going to shoot competition to learn tactics or anything like that. That's not what it's for. Competitive shooting is designed to train the body, to train the mind, and to train you how to handle your firearm at a high level under stress and to be accurate.
Right.
That is what you should be taking away from competitive shooting. If you're wanting to go and learn tactics, go find a tactics instructor and learn tactics. But if you're wanting to learn how to handle your firearm at a high level and manipulate any type of problem or issue, accuracy, trigger control, all of that, if you're looking to increase your proficiency level with all of that, competitive shooting is the number one way to go.
Yes.
DZ Ren asks, what is the best way to make sure your family is safe while you're out in public? With kids, it's like herding cats.
Yes, it is. And situational awareness helps. Make sure that your wife is watching that. Mm-hmm. That's one thing, you know, that if you're not careful, you know, you're tending to this one, she's tending to this one. Yep. It is definitely something that you got to do. And yeah, we had 3 kids, so I understand.
And it's having a plan. You know, once your kids get older and are able to understand, you know, situational awareness, they're able to understand profiling, they're able to understand some of the things that you're doing, share that with them. You walk into a restaurant, explain to them what you're doing, why you're doing it. Explain to them what the plan is in the restaurant if there is an issue. That way everyone's on the same page. You know, having a plan and executing it is always going to give you an advantage. And if your family's on the same plan, your children understand and are on the same plan, it's going to increase everyone's survivability.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Even in your home.
That's right.
One of the things we've talked about is if the alarm goes off in the middle of the night and I'm up, you don't come look and investigate to see. You know, you stay in your room, you stay in your area, and you hunker down. And, you know, we have a plan to where this is what you do. And so, you know, the same thing is when you're out, is have some kind of plans and just think about it. Because a lot of times we just got back from a resort area and we were hanging out. We were like walking around. There were people everywhere. We go to the car to go to, you know, to get back in our car. We're doing things, you know, again, having that mindset.
You know, most people conduct fire drills in their house. You know, you have small children, you do a fire drill in your house. So if there is a problem, there's a plan. Everyone knows where they're supposed to go, where the rally point is.
Right.
So that way everyone gets out of the house, everyone meets at the rally point. Nobody's going back in looking for someone, but there is a well-defined plan for what to do in case of that type of an emergency. The stuff that we're talking about today is no different. You need to have a plan for how you're going to deal with any of these types of emergencies. And that plan will always help you to make proper and sound decisions.
That's right. Yes.
Daryl B asked, quick draw when face-to-face, ?
Quick draw. If they've got a gun drawn on you, your chances are very slim.
You're never going to outdraw somebody that's already got a firearm pointed at you. Very slim.
Now, years ago, they did some testing where they had a guy with a knife and he was like within 21 feet and they had their gun. And actually, I think they had it out, didn't they?
No, it was from the holster.
But by the time the guy started moving and they drew and and it was using, you know, some kind of
munitions.
Every time the guy would get to him beforehand with a knife.
Yep.
So, you know, that's one thing is your chances there. You need to watch for an opening. Sometimes they look around, sometimes they look off. And that's one of the things of active self-protection. Watch that. If you're really interested in knowing some things, it'll really help your situational awareness.
Well, that's a big thing, you know, learn about moving offline, not staying in a static position, you know, not moving forward or aft, but moving laterally, side to side. Side to side movement creates distance, and it also creates separation and allows you to get your firearm out and be able to use it in a defensive manner.
Right.
Versus trying to move straight back. If you're moving straight back, it's very easy for someone to run
position for them
to fire. You are, and it's easy for someone to, if they've got a knife, to just run straight at you.
Right.
It's much more difficult for someone to have to start turning and angling to try and get to you. And it might not buy you 2 or 3 seconds, but it might buy you 1/10 or 2/10 or 3/10. It's still going to allow you to create separation.
Look for your opening.
Absolutely.
But if he's drawn on you, he has the advantage.
Yep.
CJ LaChapelle asked, how can I get comfortable carrying with a round in the chamber?
Watch some of these videos where the guys are racking it and the gun jams over and over and over. So I highly recommend. Now, the Israeli Defense Force, their doctrine is to keep one out of a chamber. I mean, that is Israeli carry, and they don't. But I'll tell you, guys, I'm telling you, this active self-protection will really get you thinking.
Yeah.
And a lot of the perps, a lot of them don't carry one in the chamber.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is just an attitude thing where they can go, and then go, and a lot of times the gun will jam, it'll mess up, that it won't fire, or it'll fire the first round, the magazine will fall out. I highly recommend carrying one in the chamber. Just make sure that you have a good, safe firearm.
Yeah. And a good holster.
Yes, a good holster. Now, if you're carrying a striker fire pistol without a safety on it, sometimes that bothers people. So if you really feel like you're not comfortable carrying that way, get a firearm with a manual safety and practice with that safety every time. Practice.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me is holster selection. You know, there's a lot of really good holsters out there. You want to make sure that the holster completely covers the entire trigger assembly.
Right.
That way nothing can get in there into the trigger assembly and pull the trigger. That it has some type of retention, at least a level 1 or level 2 retention. I prefer at least a level 2 for a carry pistol. That way there has to be a physical action to release the pistol from the holster. That way if you're having to run, you don't have to worry about the pistol bouncing out of the holster, falling out. You're not having to reach down and hold it and try and hold it in the holster. So, you know, I'm a big fan of some type of active retention to keep that pistol in the holster. And then the big thing too is when you draw, make sure your finger stays off of the trigger during the draw stroke. Right? You come out of the holster, you know, like there's some holsters out there that use different levers that you have to use your index finger to depress the lever that's near the trigger guard. Well, in a high stress situation, you can depress that lever and you're pushing so hard that as soon as the trigger guard clears the holster, your finger goes like this because you're pushing so hard, and you can have an accidental or incidental discharge because of that. I like the level 2 releases that use your thumb. Come down on your draw stroke, your thumb pushes the lever to release the lock and allows you to draw. That allows you to keep your index finger straight on the side of the gun without inducing any tension in it.
Now, he comes from the competitive background, and a lot of times you have to have some kind of retention. A lot of law enforcement do. Me personally, I don't like that. I like to have a good, solid holster that's full, that holds the gun very well, like what I'm wearing right now. So it's like when I pull it out, you know, it has some resistance, but yet it comes out. And sometimes you can get passive resistance to where the retention is passive retention, where it'll actually, the holster's made to have a little bit of a catch to it, so you can just draw it out.
Yep.
So, you know, that's a good option. Okay, we good? All right, let's go ahead and go back to our list, because we still have a few things to talk about. Okay, so let's say that you're on the draw. They've got you. You can't really get away. There's no opening. They put you in the trunk. The one thing you can do and guys, this happens. This happens, as crazy as this sounds. Kick out the taillight. Just kick it out. It'll kick out because you can change them in and out.
Yeah, so, and there's just like 4 little small screws and plastic clips that hold taillights in. They're very easy to kick out.
So kick it out, and then if you can get a hand or get something out of there and start waving around. I'm gonna tell you, somebody driving down the road that sees a hand waving from a trunk, they're gonna call 911 and then get the tag. So it'll give you some kind of chance. Now, some of the modern cars now, they're a little bit more difficult to do that.
Most of your modern cars now actually have a release lever in the trunk, where if you get locked in the trunk of the vehicle, there's a release lever in the trunk for an emergency release where you can flip that lever in the trunk to allow you to escape. So if you own a newer car, do a little research on that model and find out where the emergency release lever is in the trunk of your vehicle.
Yeah, because a lot of times they can take you with your car.
That's right.
And get you in your
Absolutely.
car. Okay, now this is a little different. Don't be sympathetic. Now I know that's hard, you know, because you want to be right. You want to be, you want to help people. Here, actually, just down below here in a town not too far from here, there was a guy that was driving down the road. There was a guy laying in the road. He was looked like he was injured. So the guy stops to help him. As he stops, 3 guys run out of the bush. They shoot him, and then they get in his car and take off. So you got to be aware. You know, you want to help people, you want to do for people, but sometimes, especially women, especially ladies, you need to be really careful. You know, I stopped just recently, and there was a guy that had a flat tire. and I stopped to help him. One guy had out of gas, but they were out of gas. I could see that they were out of gas. It wasn't like that, but still, you never know, and you don't need to be sympathetic. In fact, I had a buddy of mine down in Atlanta. He was going to the airport. It was real early in the morning, and he was sitting at a red light, and he had a trailer hitch off the back. Well, he heard this guy, and the guy bumped, and he said he bumped into his trailer hitch and kind of fell over, and he was on the ground, and he was like, wow. So he felt bad because it was his trailer hitch.
Mm-hmm.
He gets out of the car and he walks around to see the guy, but he sees two other guys running out of some bit between these two buildings toward them. So he runs, just gets in his car and drives through the red light. So, don't be sympathetic. One of the things that Ted Bundy, the Green River Killer, nice looking guy, well dressed. You never would have thought. In fact, he was a ladies' man. And one of the things he would do is walk with a limp, with a cane, and he'd walk. And one of his big ways to get ladies was, he said, can you help me get in the car? And they would help, and he'd pull them in. And so, you got to be careful. Again, your gut, like
That's
you were
right.
talking about earlier.
Always listen to your gut. If your gut tells you that it doesn't feel right, listen to it. Be like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to help you today.
Right. Or if there's someone else around, a man or whatever that can help.
Yep.
But, this goes with all, it was like, what's his name? John Wayne Gacy.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things he did, he drove around in a car that looked like a cop car, and he would pull up to people and he'd say, hey, you need a ride? And, usually it's young boys.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd say, well, okay, great. And they'd get in the car. He'd start talking to him. He'd take chloroform and he would put it over their face, and they would just pass out.
Mm-hmm.
And, then he would take them somewhere. And then when they woke up, they were tied up and they were being strangled. So, sympathy is something that we have we want to do for people. We want to help people.
It's in our nature.
Yeah.
It's in our nature to want to help, but we have to weigh the consequence and the benefit and the risk of helping. And, always go with your gut. 100%
Right.
Go with your gut.
That's right. Don't feel embarrassed to go with your gut. Now, that's number 9, which really actually kind of surprised me a little bit. One thing that some people have been doing lately is they'll take a recording of a crying baby and they'll put it somewhere. And so someone will go to it and they're waiting on you to go to it. Listen, if you have a crying baby outside of your home or a crying baby somewhere and you're like walking to see where it is, and I don't mean like in a big crowd, but in an area that's kind of secluded where you feel like the baby needs help.
Back to the parking garage thing.
Yeah.
Or
You're a crying baby.
Outside your home where there's not supposed to be any crying babies.
Right. Right. That's one place I would consider outside your home.
Mm-hmm.
Just call 911. Don't go check on it. Just call 911. Now, if you're a man and you carrying, but even then, you're stepping out. The perp has the
absolute advantage.
Yeah, he has the element of surprise, and so that's one. But any kind of situation where they're playing on your sympathies, you got to be careful because these guys know this. It's amazing as much as they do, and as smart as they are at trapping and doing all this stuff. The creativity that's being lost that could be used in so many different areas. Okay, and then last but not least. And this is a new thing that's happening, is if all of a sudden you're at home and you hear your water running outside, you hear water running and the faucet's on outside, this is a new technique they're using to get you out of the home. And so they get you out of the home, and then, you're like, why is my water running? And then there you are. There they are. They're there to get you. So be careful with things like that.
Yep.
Be careful with loud noises that are going on outside your house. Be very aware of what's going on. Years ago, when my family had a business and we had an alarm system, and when it would go off, it would alert us. Mm-hmm. And there was a phone number on the door as well, and people would call it and say, hey, your alarm's going off. You go down there to check the alarm, and they're waiting on you. And that was one of the things the police told us. They said, look, if someone calls you, call us first. We'll meet you down there. And so that's another element of you're being called. You think it's the right thing to do. You're trying to do something, trying to fix something, and then they use that against you.
Yeah.
And so, that's one thing to be really careful of.
Well, one of the big things with the water running outside your home, a lot of us have cameras outside our home now. They became so affordable that it's in a lot of cases, it's easy to put a camera or several cameras outside your home.
Right.
Make sure you have your camera where you can see your spigots and stuff on the outside. That way you can check if you do hear water running, you can check your cameras before you go outside to see if there was any kind of movement or anything. Anyone triggered it and made that camera go off, and that's why the water is running.
Right.
But take every advantage that you can to put yourself in a position to where you know exactly what's going on. If you can identify a threat, you see somebody outside, they've turned your water on, you know that they're setting you up for something, call the police. Get the police on the way. Be like, hey, somebody's outside my house. They turned my water on. They're trying to draw me out of my house. I'm in fear for my life. Please send the police.
Well, it's one thing. We have a driveway alarm. In fact, it went off last night about 1:30. And I was already in bed, of course, and I heard it go off. So I get up to just investigate it. I want to look. So I look out the window. We have a certain window that reaches up there. And so anybody that comes into our drive, I know, and it's pretty accurate. I mean, it doesn't just go off. I mean, it means something has triggered it.
Yep.
Of course, 9 times out of 10, it's the cat. For some reason, he likes to come over and he goes right there where the alarm is.
Yep.
So I'm having to actually build a little block around it to keep him from setting it off. But having some steps, again, like Robbie said, the cameras, that's a great idea. And I'll tell you a little story about cameras. So one day I'm coming home, my son and I were walking down the walk, and there's Skittles. There's Skittles everywhere. They're all over the sidewalk. I mean, our walkway, they're just everywhere. And I was like, now who in the world would have dropped Skittles and just left them? It just was kind of like, what the heck? Because, we have kids, and sometimes their friends are over and whatever, and our kids for that matter.
Yep.
So we were just kind of looking at it, and we were talking about it. So a buddy of mine, actually my son's a really good friend of his, he's a friend of mine too. But he was coming down the steps, and it was raining, and he slipped, and he had Skittles, and they went everywhere, and he fell in the steps. It was about 10 steps, so it's not a little bit. And so the Skittles went everywhere, and he was like, oh man, and of course it was raining, and he left. And it was funny. He told me about it. We went back and brought the surveillance camera, our video camera, up and watched it like 10 times. Thank goodness he didn't sue us. But, anyways, the cameras can come in handy for other reasons. But it's really good to be able to know what's going on. And the technology that we have now is just phenomenal.
That's right. It just gives us another advantage that we can take to protect ourselves.
Right. And we need all the advantages we can get. And it's just like with firearms, guys. We need to be standing for our rights, firearm rights. And the better that I can, the more advantage I can have with whatever firearm it is, not limited to 10 rounds, not limited to a pistol. If I want to use an AR-15, that's my business. Because a lot of times, especially in these home invasions, it can be multiple attackers.
That's right.
And so it's really good to have as much as you can have. I mean, I want the most advantage I can have. I'm going to do things that are right and law-abiding, but there are people out there who will not. And so, even when you comply, like everyone, in fact, I watched this one video, it was a surveillance camera video, where this guy comes in to rob a hotel. And he walks in, there was this lady, she was probably in her 60s, and she's at the counter, and he asked, and he's wearing a hood, and he's got a mask on. And, so she checks the room, and so then he pulls a gun on her and says, give me the cash out of that drawer. So she does what he says. She opens it up, she gives him the cash, and then he said, there's one over there. And so she goes over and she opens it. He didn't even take the cash, he just shoots her. I mean, shoots her point blank, kills her, and then doesn't even get the cash there, takes off, goes outside. There's a guy coming in, he shoots him. The thing is, guys, is sometimes, especially with people that we're talking about here, that we're having to defend ourselves against, they do not think like you do. They think like a predator.
Yep.
And so you've got to think about it in that same element. You can't let these people do whatever. You've got to make sure that you have the mindset to expect the unexpected.
That's right.
And I think that's the big thing here. You know what? We expect just to go out, get in our car, drive home, have dinner, watch a ball game, cool. But sometimes there are people out there that are wanting to disrupt that. And it could really mean, a tragedy for you and your family. So hopefully this will help give you some ideas. You can pass this along to those, even if you want to make a list. But I highly recommend that you tell those you love, especially if you're a guy and your wife, or maybe you're a woman and you want to tell your kids, your teenagers. Right. They need to know this as well, because the human trafficking thing that's going on in this country is a real pandemic.
It is, absolutely.
And we really need to be careful. So we got 5 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and get things signed down. Again, we appreciate Sportsman's Guide for sponsoring the episode. $20 off every $100 or more purchase. And you use SOOTCH. That's all you use. It'll give you that discount. In fact, I just used it. This past week, I used it, and it works. It's great. And I buy a lot of stuff off Sportsman's Guide. So just a great resource. I mean, they have everything. Military surplus, guns, camping, fishing, whatever you're looking for. And
make sure you sign up for their Buyers Club. You get free shipping on almost every item that they have, that they sell. You buy any kind of big, bulky surplus stuff, and the Buyers Club is going to pay for itself in almost no time.
Yeah. I think ammunition is one thing they don't ship for free.
But nobody's got it right now anyway.
Yeah, true enough. Well, we are seeing it come back a little bit. Guys, be involved with what's going on in your government. We need, especially state and local.
That's right.
There's a lot of things going on, and you need to be involved as much as possible because there's a lot of really strange ideas out there.
Well, right now, make sure you're calling your congressmen and your senators about this BATFE confirmation.
Yes, good Lord. If we get him in, Chapman's
that's a really, really big one. So make sure you're reaching out to your senators and voicing your concerns to them about the confirmation of Chipman as the BATFE director.
And we really appreciate Sarah Mack for getting all your questions. Thank you for asking the questions. I hope we helped. I'm sure there were some that we didn't get to, and we apologize. But also, we really appreciate Robbie Wheaton for being here, and just great resource. Of course, obviously, with what we talked about, but also guns. I mean, again, gunsmith for over 20 years. And check out WheatonArms.com. A lot of great aftermarket Glock parts.
Yep.
Those triggers, guys, I'm telling you, if you've ever bought one, they're hard to get because he puts them up and people just buy through them. They are just really popular.
Yep. We've got a few hundred of the Black Gen 1 through 4s that are finishing up at Anodized today. Going to be up on the site tomorrow.
Okay, so watch it. You can get on his newsletter. Check that out. And also GoMed Gear, and they've got their sale coming up.
Got a big flash sale coming up on the 18th. Yep.
So check that out, guys. You need to have some kind of medical, some kind of. I always keep trauma kits in my vehicle. Sometimes, according to what I'm doing, I keep them on my person. Yep. A lot of people are really hard on keeping them on your person, but it's really great to have, and that can be anything, especially if you have a family. So we're going to go ahead and check out. Hope you guys have a great week. Hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend and honored those who have given all, because there are so many out there that have. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.